Cody Collects here at C2E2, and I'm here with Chris, founder and CEO of GlobalComix. I guess first question, Chris, for those that don't know, what is GlobalComix?
GlobalComix is a platform for distributing digital comics. It's a subscription service for paywall content where creators and publishers from all around the world can upload and publish and make their work available. They can choose whether they want a paywall and make, have that be a blocker, or they can make it up for free. We also provide a suite of additional services for creators designed around the idea of how can we help creators become more successful.
Absolutely, yeah. And that's something that, we've been saying for a super long time is why isn't there just one comic book app where you can just get, everything from every indie publisher? GlobalComix is here to solve that problem. But I got to ask, we didn't talk about it before, but there are other apps that are starting to do this thing. What sets you guys apart from them? I mean, if that's...
Yeah, so look, there are other apps that do stuff, but they're focused on specific verticals, right? So you on the Western comic side, you have ComiXology, which, isn't maybe doing as good of a job as it did before, but it's only traditional Western books. You have platforms like webtoons and tapas that's doing vertical scroll. If you go into the manga space, there's a gazillion apps, most of them Japanese. Only about 5% of manga actually gets localized internationally. So, there's this whole pie and this whole universe of different types of comics and different types of creators. There's no place where you can actually get all of them in one place. We do that. We do the vertical scroll. We do the traditional print. We work with manga publishers. We work with US publishers. We work with European publishers. We give tools for individual creators everywhere to upload and publish their book, right? So if you are a creator and you have a book available, maybe as a PDF, you'll be live in less than 5 minutes.
Wow, that's pretty impressive. Absolutely, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, I definitely want to touch on the print-on-demand part, which we were talking about earlier. So could you explain a little bit about why, this hole that, you guys needed to fill because, no one else was doing it, and how you guys solved that solution with print-on-demand?
Well, it's such a funny thing, right? Look, there's a very interesting thing that happens when you get down to batch size of one. Yeah. Right, like when you don't need to invest in making 500 of something in order to make it, you can do a lot of much more creative things, right? So we asked ourselves this question: what would it be? What would it need to be like if we wanted to give 50,000 creators the ability to hold a copy of their comic in their hand? And we had conversations with hundreds of creators from around the internet. A lot of them in the webcomic space, in the vertical scroll space, on platforms like Tapas and Webtoons and these types of things. Turns out they actually make and design their books very often in print layout first and then reformat for vertical scroll because they want to have a physical copy of their book, right? And so when you're in a space where you can produce something with count of one, right? Then we don't need to worry about how do we get this into limited shelf space with retailers. We can just ship it to that person. One of my previous jobs was at a company called Shapeways. It's a 3D printing marketplace. Gotcha. With manufacturing on demand of three-dimensional objects and different materials would ship to customer, right? So I came from that space and I'm like, we can solve this in 3 dimensions. Why can't we do it in 2 with paper, right? So that was kind of one part of it, and the other part was when you can have everything be unique, you can also change the game of what a personalized comic might mean, right? And so I recently became a dad, and one of the things that I wanted to be able to, thank you. One of the things that I really want to be able to do is, when my boy turns around 5 or 6, I want to be able to, for his birthday, give him a comic book where he's a background character in the story, right? And that becomes possible when I don't need to make 500 of it.
Absolutely, yeah, great point. So something we talked about earlier as we were going through the demo, I want to touch on a little bit about the customized experience for the user, right? So we're talking about how you determine, this is an 80% match for this person. What kind of goes into determining that this is going to be something that this person's going to be interested in reading?
So when you onboard into the app for the first time, or you can access it from your user settings, You go through this questionnaire where you're asked what types of comics are you interested in, right? Like comics, graphic novels, manga, webcomics, etc. It asks you about genres. What do you care about? And it also asks you about themes. And on GlobalComix, we have something like 50, 60 themes, and anthropomorphic, and aliens, and time travel, and science, and military, and like all this kind of stuff, right? And so as you go through and you flesh out, well, I'm interested in these things, we can actually look at a comic and say, okay, well, we know what type it is, we know what genre it is, we know what themes the comic has self-selected into. If you have an interest in all of those combined, it's a 100% match. If you have, I think the maximum theme select at this time is 6 for a comic. So 6 plus genre and type would be 8, right? Yep. And so if you have 5 of those things in your interest, it's a slightly lower percentage, but it's still a match, right? Yeah. And the things that have nothing aren't in your interest at all.
Yep. Huge thanks to Chris here at C2E2 for doing this interview and giving the time and explaining what GlobalComix is. So final question, when can people get their hands on GlobalComix? Just about. Give people an estimate maybe.
The app?
Yeah.
It's not too long away.
Gotcha.
Like, look, I wouldn't be surprised if in the next month and a half-ish, this would be available to folks and they can start reading and using the app. Yeah. Probably around there-ish.
Because I personally, I know like 20 people that are just ready to rock and roll and try it out. So yeah, looking forward to it. Yeah.
I'm so excited and I can't wait to hear their feedback on the internet.
Yeah. Huge shout out to Chris here at C2E2 for giving us the time for this interview. Thanks a lot.